Let's just start off saying Peter the Great was a large man. Standing at nearly 7 feet tall, Peter was easy to identify. Peter the Great was a brilliant ruler but very controversial. Peter made Russia into great power. The mission of the Great Embassy was to strengthen and broaden the alliance between Russia and many European states for the struggle against Turkey for the northern shore of the Black Sea, to invite specialists to enter Russian service, and to order and purchase military materials and arms. Peter left for England with part of the embassy for 3 months. There he carried on negotiations with the British King William III, became acquainted with shipbuilding, visited shipyards and artillery factories, and hired specialists. Attempting to avert the conclusion of the separate peace between Austria and Turkey, the Great Embassy carried on unsuccessful negotiations in Vienna with the representatives of its former allies in the coalition against Turkey, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Austria and the Vienna ambassador. A proposed journey to Venice was cancelled because of news of the revolt of the semi-professional musketeers in Moscow, and Peter hurried return to Russia. His first stop was at the Baltic town in Riga, where Peter took a vivid interest in the town's fortifications, based off the ones of the famous French Marshal Vauban. Things went too far, however, when a local guard ordered Peter away when he found that the young Russian was taking measurements of the fort's walls and making sketches. Peter would never forget this incident, and it would come back later when he declared war on Sweden, citing his rude reception at Riga as an excuse. Peter arrived in Amsterdam in the late summer of 1698. At the height of its power and prosperity, Amsterdam was the largest city in Europe and was regarded as the largest port in the world, along with the world's most famous shipbuilders. To a person of Peter's personality, Amsterdam seemed like heaven on earth. From Amsterdam, Peter traveled in secret to a small town called Zandam, where he met an old friend who gladly allowed him to stay in his little cottage. Afterwards, he signed on as a common worker in one of the shipyards of the city, hoping to learn the Dutch secrets and how they built their ships. He stayed 4 months in Holland, going through the whole process of shipbuilding. Eventually, however, word of his arrival got out, and crowds gathered around, watching the young monarch every day. Frustrated and annoyed, Peter refused all dinner invitations given to him by the merchants of the city, and instead he sailed away back to Amsterdam. While in Amsterdam, Peter continued his work in the shipyards, helping lay the keel of the frigate that would be the Tsar's gift from the city. Peter also visited many places: windmills, factories, labs, and docks. He also met and conversed with many famous Dutchmen, where he was able to watch a mock sea battle. By January of 1699, however, Peter left Amsterdam to visit London, where he paid his first visit to William, King of England and Holland. After a long friendly conversation, William allowed his guests to visit the sights of the city. The theaters, the gardens, and the docks were all open to him. Peter saw English life and institutions. As a sign of his hospitality, William even gave a royal 20-gun yacht to Peter, as well as staging yet another mock sea battle off Spithead. King William, however, had no interest in joining to fight the Turks, so Peter went on to Austria. Saying his goodbyes to his hero, Peter headed off to a short stay in Vienna to visit the Austrians' allies. In the end, however, even Peter could not convince the Austrian emperor to continue the war against Hungary. He was preparing to move on to Venice when a courier arrived with a message that 4 regiments of the musketeers had revolted and were marching on Moscow. Peter left hurriedly for home in January. On his way home, Peter visited Poland, where he met King Augustus for a short while. Both monarchs instantly took a liking to each other. However, negotiations for an alliance were cut short by Peter's rush to get back to Russia. In Poland, the message reached him that the revolt had been put down and the leaders executed. He was needed in Russia immediately. He arrived in the evening and went to see his mistress Anna Mons at the German quarter. He was home after 17 months and 17 days. That's why history calls Peter's European visit as the Great Embassy. The Great Embassy was over, and although Peter's diplomatic mission failed, he had learned a great deal about the West, and he was now intent on modelizing Russia for the future.